Well, hello, and welcome to Lesson 7.3. This lesson is basically a continuation of what we did in 7.2, where we were solving multi-step equations. So once again, we're going to have that simplify step first. Let's go ahead and review those points. So step 0, before we do anything, we're going to simplify. Step 1 is we're going to go through our multi-step equation, and we're going to get rid of subtraction and addition first. Then we'll get rid of division and multiplication. Next we'll get rid of exponents, which we're not going to see yet, but today we will see parentheses. Okay, so again, we go in order, and again, to remember this, it's just PEMDAS spelled backwards. Once you identify what you want to get rid of, remember the idea of opposites to make it go away. And remember to keep balance, so whatever you do to one side of the equation, you have to do to the other. All right, now we are going to be working with the same kinds of equations, but the numbers are going to be a little bit harder. We're going to have decimals and fractions in these, and we're going to learn a few more tricks that can help us with the simplifying step. All right, so let's take a look at some problems. Let's first start with one that has some fractions in it. Okay, so let's start with 2/3 x minus 6 equals 22. Okay, so this is just a straight multi-step equation. Don't worry about simplifying. There's nothing that needs to be done. So what do we get rid of first? Either the 2/3, which is multiplied times the variable, or the minus 6, which is subtracted from the variable. Well, obviously, subtraction and addition get taken care of first. The opposite of minus 6 is plus 6. So I'm going to add plus 6 on both sides, draw a nice big line. Those things will fruit ninja, and I'm left with 2/3 x. I might as well leave the parentheses right there to remind myself that that is multiplication, and we're going to get rid of it. And 22 plus 6 is 28. Okay. Now, if you remember how to get rid of fraction equations, to get rid of times 2/3, yes, we're going to divide by 2/3, but the way we divide by fractions is we flip and multiply. We multiply by the reciprocal. So let's go ahead and just go right to that step. Let's multiply both sides by 3/2. Now we do have a slight problem on the right. It's not a fraction, so we'll just fix that. We'll make it 28 over 1. Okay. On the left side, we get beautiful fruit ninja. The 2's and the 3's cancel out, leaving me with just x. On the right, I can also do a little canceling. The 2 and the 28 are both even, so let's take a 2 out, and I get 1 and 14. And now to wrap this up, I get x is equal to 14 times 3, which gives me 42. Okay. If I want to double check that equation, hold on a second. All right, all I need to do is take the 42, put it back into the original equation, take 2/3 of 42, and again, that'll be 28. You might have to do a little math to prove that. Subtract 6, and sure enough, we get 22. So that will check. We can check it either on paper, or we can check it mentally, like I just described. All right, so no big deal. We're just going to do the same thing with a little bit harder numbers. Okay, so let's take a look at a couple more equations. I'll do one more for you, and then I want you to do one on your own. Okay, so the next one is negative 7/10 times k plus 14 is equal to a negative 21. So again, we've got negative numbers, we've got fractions. This is just a little bit more involved in solving. We're still going to always go after the plus and minus first, so we'll subtract 14 from both sides. When I do that, this cancels out, leaving me negative 7/10 k. And negative, we're going to combine those. They're both negative, so we're going to find the sum, which is 35. Keep the sign of the larger value. Obviously, they're both negative. All right, the next step is going to get rid of the, let's go ahead and get rid of the negative and the 7/10 at the same time by multiplying by negative 10/7. The negatives will cancel out, and the 10's and 7's will cancel out. Again, let's put the whole number over 1 and multiply by negative 10 over 7. Okay, so I do the same thing on both sides. Over here, everything fruit ninjas. The negatives cancel out, the 7's, the 10's all cancel out. We get k. On the right-hand side, negative 35 and 7 are both divisible by 7, so let's divide it out. We get negative 5 on the top, and we get 1 on the bottom. And to wrap this up, negative 5 times negative 10 is a positive 50. The only thing on the bottom is a 1, so we are done. Okay, and again, if you double check that one, it's negative 7/10 of 50 will give you negative 35, and if you add 14 to that, we will get negative 21. Okay, why don't you go ahead and try one on your own. I'd like you to try 2/3 of the quantity m minus 6 equals 3. And actually, I changed my mind. I'm going to go do this one for you for two reasons. There's two different ways to solve this one. Okay, here's an example of one where we can do the distributive property. Okay, if I distribute through, I'll have 2/3 m minus 2/3 of 6, which is minus 4. Okay, and then basically it'll look just like the equation we just solved. However, we do see parentheses, and SADMEP tells me that what I really should do is attack the subtraction addition first, then the division multiplication, then exponents, then parentheses. Okay, now the minus 6 that's being subtracted from the m is inside parentheses. That's way down here. So I can go ahead and add 6, but I'm not going to be able to do it until I've done all the other steps. So in this case, the multiplication by 2/3 is actually going to come before the parentheses. So if I follow that order, what I'm going to start is I'm going to get rid of this times 2/3. And the way I get rid of times 2/3 is I multiply by its reciprocal, which is 3/2. Again, fix that so it's over 1. Notice that this cancels out perfectly, leaving me with m minus 6. I don't even need the parentheses anymore, since that's all I have on the left side. And on the right side, I get 9/2. Go ahead and add 6 to both sides of this. All right, now 9/2 is actually 4 1/2. And so if I add 6 to 4 1/2, what I'm actually going to get is m is equal to 10 1/2. Okay, I could also do that as a decimal. I also could have changed 6 into 12/2 and got 25/2. I'm sorry, 23/2. Nope, I'll try that one more time. It would have been 21/2. Because 12 and 9 would have given me 21. And yes, 21/2 would reduce to 10 1/2. Okay, it doesn't really matter. Again, we've talked about this before. All of those methods are mathematically equivalent. Okay, so here's an example for the first time where we had parentheses. Okay, and the parentheses, again, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4 was done last. Okay, and as usual, if I had done this by distributive property is nothing more than a way to get around order of operations. Let's go ahead and take a look at what would have happened if I distributed here. I would have got 2/3 times m minus 2/3 of 6, which is minus 4. That's the distributive, would have equaled 3. Okay, I then would have added 4 to both sides. I would have got 2/3 m is equal to 7. I'd multiply both sides by 3/2, just like I did in the first step. And I get m is equal to 21. My apologies, I just noticed that my recording had paused. And so I'm going to resume here, and there's no way for me to tell right now where exactly I was in the recording when it paused. So I have these two fraction equations in front of you, and so you notice on the top in the blue, just to review one more time, the first one I solved by just going ahead and solving the equation with fractions. In the second equation in green, I multiplied the entire equation through by 12. Okay, and again, I picked that one, just to remind you, because it was the least common denominator of all the denominators, or the least common multiple of any of the bottoms. Same thing. They mean the same exact thing. Okay, and so that cleared the fractions. Notice in both cases we got 9/12, and in both cases that needs to be reduced to 3/4. Okay, well, I'm going to cut it off here, so thank you for watching once again. Keep in mind, there's nothing new in this lesson that we didn't do in the previous lesson where we were solving multi-step equations. The only difference here is you have some fractions and some decimals to contend with. And while that does give you the opportunity to try a few more tricks, like clearing the fractions or like clearing the decimals, the basic math that we're practicing here remains the same. Okay, I will be back in class tomorrow, so I hope that you've been productive with the substitute. I'll answer any questions that you have, and we will continue with problems from section 7.3 in class tomorrow. Thank you for tuning in, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.